They still ask if you had a secret child.
Then they still prefer gossip to history.
History often hides inside gossip. The Virgin Queen, the untouched Queen, the Mother of England. No husband, no heir, no child. Was that purity, strategy, or fear?
You begin like a pamphleteer.
I begin with the version you've had the most practice telling, so let me ask it plainly. Did you belong to no man, or did you spend your life making sure no man could own you?
Men have always mistaken possession for truth.
That sounds like a crown answering. I'm asking the woman under it.
Then you will need patience. The woman has been under it a very long time.
The maps are stained in older red. Behind the marble something bled. A mountain moved by iron hands to build a house of shifting sands. I hear the pulse beneath the crown. A king is just a man looked down. We map the hunger, trace the ghost of those who won the most.
Welcome back to Minds of History. I'm Michael. Tonight's guest ruled England for 45 years, turned a bankrupt island into a legend, and built one of the most carefully controlled images in history, an image with no visible seams. We have one evening. Let's see how many locks there are. Let's begin with the official portrait. Daughter of Great Harry, Princess of England, born to rule.
A tidy story.
How long did it last?
2 years and 8 months.
What happens to a princess at 2 years and 8 months?
Her father grows weary of her mother.
Weary. Your father had your mother's head cut.
The Queen, my mother, was tried and condemned by due process of law.
That's the state's sentence. I'm told you learned it early.
It was the safest sentence in England. I kept it where I could reach it.
And behind it?
Behind it is none of your... Behind it was a child. Continue.
Then let's stay with the child. Parliament declares her illegitimate. Title, succession, safety, gone. Your father did not only take your mother from you, he took your place in the world. What did that teach a child?
A child does not understand statutes of succession.
No. But a child understands when people stop bowing. Tell me about the dress.
What dress?
We both know which one.
You have read the letters, evidently. Then you do not need me.
Reading a letter isn't the same as being 3 years old inside it.
They stopped bowing within the week. My governess wrote to the court begging clothes for me. I had outgrown every gown I owned, and no one troubled to answer. That is what erasure looks like to a child of 3. A dress that no longer fits. A household that no longer sees you.
And the lesson?
Blood is sacred only while men in power find it useful. On Monday, I was England's future. On Friday, I was an inconvenience in an old dress.
Did you believe what they said about your mother? The adultery, the treason?
I believed what every child in court learns. Truth is what survives the king.
That's what you performed. What did you believe?
You ask a queen to call her father a murderer, on record.
I ask a daughter what she knew.
5 men died to decorate a lie. My mother's treason was giving Henry a daughter instead of a son. He required her guilty, so she became guilty. There, you have your record.
There's a ring. You wore it your whole reign. 2 portraits hidden inside, yours and a face believed to be hers.
In public, I was my father's daughter. In private, I kept my mother where no courtier could reach her.
What did you feel when you opened it?
I did not open it for feeling.
Then for what?
Grief at first. Later, instruction. The face said, "See what they did to me. Be what I was not permitted to become." I did not open it for comfort, Master Michael. I opened it for orders.
And Henry? Do you hate him?
No.
That was fast.
It was practiced. Ask a different question.
What's left of him in you?
Terror. Admiration. Arithmetic.
Arithmetic?
I needed him. A woman claiming a throne in a kingdom of men needed the blood of the great Harry roaring in her veins, his ghost standing behind her chair. So I mourned my mother in a ring and wore my father on my face. Did I use him? Gladly. He owed me.
My audience noticed something about you. The wit, the languages, the charm that could turn a room. They believe those came from her.
History gave me my father's name. My mother gave me everything I did with it.
Catherine Parr, your father's sixth wife, the one who survived him. What was she to you?
The first proof I ever saw that a woman could hold power without a sword. When my father went to France, she governed as regent. I watched grown men obey a woman, and the sky did not fall. She gave me tutors. Greek, Latin, French, Italian, and she persuaded my father to restore me to the succession. He erased me with a signature. Catherine argued me back into existence.
She gave you back your name.
She gave me back a future. A name is what others call you. A future is what you are permitted to want.
Then your father died. Catherine married Thomas Seymour, and you, 14 years old, went to live in their house.
Next question.
That's not how this works.
It is precisely how this works. I am the queen. You are the interviewer.
A man of nearly 40.
I know his age.
I'm not going to make you narrate it. History knows what happened in that house.
Men were always ambitious around the succession.
That's the crown talking. I asked about the girl.
Catherine gave me books. Seymour taught me doors should lock.
Elizabeth.
That is all you will have. It is more than most.
Catherine sent you away.
To save what could be saved. My reputation, her marriage, the fiction of the household. I never saw her again. She died in childbed within the year, and the last safe room in England died with her.
Months later, Seymour went to the block for treason. They say that at 15, you observed he was a man of much wit and very little judgment.
How composed of me.
Composed is one word for it. They interrogated you about him for weeks, took your servants to the tower. A 15-year-old girl, alone, against the king's counsel.
And I understood, even then, that every tear would be entered as evidence. Grief is a confession, Master Michael. I could afford neither. So I answered their questions like a lawyer and gave them nothing that could hang me.
15, and already writing your own defense.
15, and already understanding that no one else would write it.
So, which lesson stayed longer, Catherine's or his?
You do not keep one without the other. Catherine showed me a woman could rule. Seymour showed me what men call love when they mean hunger. I never confused the two again, and I never entered a room without counting its exits.
Before we continue, if you enjoy conversations that go beyond what historical figures did and explore why they did it, subscribe to Minds of History. Mary, your half-sister. History calls her Bloody Mary. What was between the two of you? Honestly.
She was my sister and my sovereign.
That's a plaque. Try again.
Fear and pity. Braided so tightly, I could not always tell you which was which. Her mother was cast aside so that mine could be crowned. Every time Mary looked at me, she saw Anne Boleyn's eyes looking back. That was my crime. I committed it by being born.
And you were Protestant. She was restoring Rome, which made you not just a sister, a rival address for every plot in England.
Men are generous with my name when treason needs a face.
Wyatt's rebellion rose in your name. Did you know? Were you involved?
Nothing was ever proved.
That's not a no.
It is the only answer that kept my head attached to my neck. I have not lost the habit.
What was the tower like?
Stone.
That's it? Stone?
You asked what it was like. It was like stone.
Then let me ask what it was. March 1554. They take you by barge, in the rain, through the Traitor's Gate, the same water your mother crossed 18 years earlier. When Mary sent you there, did you think you were walking in your mother's footsteps?
Every woman in my family knew the tower before she knew peace.
They say you sat down on the wet stones and refused to go in, announced to the guards that you were the truest subject ever to land at those stairs.
The guards were my first audience. A thing seen by enough eyes becomes true, whatever it was. If I was to enter that place, I would enter it as an innocent, loudly, publicly, memorably. Innocence that no one sees dies in the dark, so I made certain I was seen.
Did you think you'd die there?
I learned not to think beyond the next footstep. Hope is noisy. Survival prefers silence.
What filled your head at night?
Whether the axe was already ordered, whether they would grant me a French swordsman as they had granted my mother. You may judge how a mind is faring by what it has begun to call mercy.
You wrote to Mary, begged an audience, and before you signed it, you drew diagonal lines through every blank inch of the page.
An empty space on a paper is an invitation for other men's ink. One forged line beneath my signature, and I was dead. I struck through every blank, and I have never left one since.
So the tower taught you to act.
It taught me that innocence is useless unless it can be played convincingly. I attended their mass. I bowed my head at the correct moments. I gave Mary's men no sentence that could be sharpened into a blade. You mistake a played part for a lie. In the tower, the part I played was the truth that I intended to live.
There's a word in my age for locking each feeling in its own box so the rest of you can function. We call it compartmentalization. You'd have called it Tuesday.
I would have called it Tudor.
November 1558, Hatfield. They find you under an oak tree and tell you you're Queen of England. What exactly did you inherit that day? A kingdom or a wound?
A wound wearing a kingdom's clothes. Bankrupt, divided by religion, with Spain watching as a creditor watches a debtor. I knelt in the grass and quoted the psalm. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. It was pageantry. It was also, for one breath, entirely true.
Then you built the machine. Quick answers, if you please. Cecil?
40 years. The one man in England I believed loved the country as much as I did.
Walsingham?
My eyes in the dark.
And the dark itself?
Employed.
Comforting.
Discomfort was the point.
A council of brilliant men who couldn't stand each other. Most rulers want advisers who agree with them.
Most rulers die surprised. Men who agree can conspire. Men who quarrel can only compete. For me, the final word was always mine.
Then settle the old argument. Were Cecil and Walsingham your servants, or the machinery that made Elizabeth possible?
They were instruments. I was the hand.
And when those instruments spied, tortured, trapped, and killed?
Then the hand remained clean enough for portraits.
That's remarkably honest.
You asked for the woman under the crown. Yes, there were cellars, and things were done in them, and I did not ask for details, because a queen who knows details must answer for them. I am admitting the throne, Master Michael. No one keeps one clean.
Religion, then. You brought England back to Protestantism. Conviction or arithmetic?
Rome had ruled my parents' marriage void. Under the Pope's law, I was not a queen. I was a bastard, keeping a chair warm for Mary Stuart. My faith and my survival happened to share a pew.
Convenient seating.
The pew suited me. I did not ask who built it.
Your sister burned people into agreement. You simply asked them to show up on Sunday and keep their opinions to themselves.
I had watched my brother's men burn tradition, and my sister burn people. The result was the same: ash. I required outward obedience and left souls alone. I had no desire to make windows into men's hearts.
You call it moderation, but moderation under a crown is still control.
Control is what peace looks like before poets rename it mercy.
And the delays. You made hesitation look like statecraft. When you delayed, was it wisdom or terror wearing a crown? Take your time with this one too, if you like.
Ambassadors are paid to be impatient.
I'm not an ambassador.
No, you are worse. You wait. A signature ended my mother. A signature was very nearly found to end me. You will forgive a woman who learned to let ink dry slowly. But mark this. While I waited, my enemies revealed themselves faster than I ever could have found them.
Only you could file procrastination under intelligence work.
Only I was ever marked for it by an axe.
Robert Dudley. Did you love him?
Queens do not love. They consider.
That sounds like an answer written for Parliament.
Parliament asked often enough.
I'm not Parliament. Did you love him?
You have had your answer.
I've had an answer.
He knew me before England learned to worship me. That was his danger.
You'd known him since childhood. You were prisoners in the Tower at the same time.
We were educated in the same stone school. When Robert looked at me, I did not have to explain anything. Do you know how rare that is for a queen? To be looked at as a woman and not read like a proclamation.
September 1560. His wife, Amy Robsart, is found dead at the foot of a staircase, and the whole of Europe is already whispering about the two of you.
Choose your next word carefully.
I'm only asking what everyone asked then, and everyone still asks now. Did you have anything to do with her death?
You may ask that question once. You have now asked it.
Then I'd like the answer to it.
No. Before God, no. But I will tell you what her death accomplished. Whether she fell, was pushed, or was sacrificed by rumor, her death killed any future I might have had with him. From the hour they whispered murder, marrying Robert would have been signing a confession. She kept him from me more surely dead than she ever did alive.
And yet half of Europe spent 20 years proposing. That is an impressive amount of patience for princes.
I never entertained. I considered, publicly, elaborately, endlessly. My hand was the most valuable commodity in Europe, and I discovered it lost no value so long as I never sold it. I bought England years of peace with a wedding I never intended to hold. Show me the general who won so much with so little blood.
You made not marrying anyone into foreign policy.
I turned danger into policy.
And the secret child, the rumor never died. Pamphlets, Spanish agents, pretenders claiming your blood for decades.
If I had borne a child, England would have torn the cradle apart before it learned to speak. Every faction would have claimed it, stolen it, or strangled it. The rumor was my enemy's fantasy. They could not defeat the Virgin Queen, so they invented a woman easier to fight.
That's the political answer. Here's the human one. Did you want a child?
I did not permit myself the question. A queen who wants what she cannot safely have is already bleeding.
That's not a no, either.
Ask your next question.
Did you choose virginity, or did fear choose it for you?
I did not remain unmarried because I had no heart. I remained unmarried because I had seen what marriage did to queens.
Your mother, Catherine Howard, even Catherine Parr in the end.
Wives of kings, dead of being wives. A wedding turns a queen into property, and property can be disposed of. So I married the one husband who could not behead me. I gave myself to England, put on the ring at my coronation, and let the poets make a virgin goddess of the arrangement. It was the finest bargain of my reign.
Did England ever love you back?
England is loyal to what it needs. I made very certain to be needed. Love. Love I had already priced, and found I could not afford.
Mary Stuart. What was she to you? A cousin? A rival or a warning?
She was what men wanted me to fear, a Catholic queen with a womb, a bloodline, and armies of imagination.
When you looked at her, did you see a rival or a possible version of yourself?
I saw the life I refused myself, arriving at my door to show me where it led. She obeyed her heart in public. It destroyed her twice. She married for passion. The passion conspired against her. She trusted. The trust testified against her. Then she fled to me for mercy, trailing 3 kingdoms worth of catastrophe. Every choice I had refused, she had made. And there she stood. The proof.
So you gave her mercy. 19 years of it, under guard.
I held a match away from powder.
And then you lit it yourself.
She signed away my life before I ever signed away hers. Plot after plot, year after year. Ridolfi, Throckmorton, Babington. Every one of them ending in the same sentence. Elizabeth dies, Mary reigns. Walsingham put her own cipher on my table. Her hand, her words, consenting to my assassination. What would you have had me do? Admire the penmanship?
Walsingham built that trap. He let her letters flow precisely so she would incriminate herself. We'd call it entrapment.
He built a road. She chose to walk it, running.
And still you couldn't sign. The council begged. Parliament begged. You delayed for months. Why?
Because she was anointed. Kings answer to God, not to axes. That idea was the wall my own throne stood behind. If a queen's head can be removed for reasons of state, then no queen's head is safe, including the one addressing you. I was not protecting Mary, Master Michael. I was protecting the idea that protected me.
But you signed, February 1587. And here's the part I find genuinely dark. When it was done, you raged. You threw your own secretary in the Tower for delivering the warrant you signed.
Yes.
That's it? Yes?
Would you prefer embroidery? I needed her dead, and I needed to have not killed her. England required the safety. My soul required the distance. And poor Davison was made to carry the difference between them. Crowns keep scapegoats. It is among their oldest instruments. I do not defend it. I merely decline to lie about it.
You say you had no choice. Every ruler says that, after the blood dries.
And every man who never carried a crown mistakes choice for luxury.
If you could go back to 1587...
I would sign it again.
Without hesitation?
With every hesitation. That is what your century refuses to understand. Doing it again and suffering it again are not opposites. I would carry her ghost a second time, gladly, in exchange for England outliving that year. She visited me until my last night. We had, by the end, an understanding.
Do you expect to be forgiven for it?
I expect to be understood. A Tudor does not beg, not of God, not of history, and, with respect, not of you.
Killing Mary solved one problem and purchased a much larger one. Because Mary had friends, and her biggest friend had the biggest navy on earth.
Philip required little encouragement.
When the Armada came, did it feel like Europe had finally come to finish what your father started?
It felt like the bill arriving. For Mary's head, for Drake's raids, for 30 years of being an unmarried heretic on a throne the Pope had promised to someone else. Philip did not surprise me. He merely stopped pretending.
Simple question first. Were you afraid?
England was afraid.
I asked about you.
I am England. It was in the speech.
You speak exactly like your father.
Yes, of course I was afraid. A woman alone on an island, and the largest fleet in Christendom pointed at her throat. Fear was the reasonable position.
And yet you gave no orders out of it.
The art was never letting fear give the orders.
Then the harder question. Did you fear Spain, or did you finally find the enemy your myth needed?
My myth did not need Spain. England did.
Convenient, though. A foreign Catholic fleet, a threatened island, a queen with no husband, no heir, and suddenly a nation looking at her as if God had arranged the scene.
God chose his moment. I made certain England was watching when he did.
The theologians will be relieved to hear it.
They have troubled me very little.
The fleet is beaten. The storms finish what your ships started. The Dutch strike a medal. God blew, and they were scattered. You gave the weather's work to God.
It was God's wind. I will not pretend otherwise. But I made certain that every Englishman knew it, and every Spaniard feared it.
Providence, it seems, still needed a press office.
You have a smaller word for everything.
Let's puncture the textbook, then. England didn't rule the waves the next morning.
No. The war continued for years after. Spain did not vanish with one fleet. The Armada did not hand England the ocean. It handed England the idea that the ocean might one day be hers.
And at Tilbury, invasion still expected, you rode out before the army dressed for war and gave them the body of a weak woman and the heart of a king. Courage, propaganda, or theatre.
All courage becomes pageantry if enough people are watching.
Stay at Tilbury. I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England, too. Were you acting when you said that?
I was ruling. The difference is only visible to those who have never ruled.
So Gloriana was a role.
Every crown is a role. Mine was simply better lit.
And the white paint? The pearls? The portraits that never aged, approved by you while the unflattering ones were quietly seized?
You say it as an accusation. I say it as governance. A realm reads its sovereign's face for weather. I did not permit storms.
Even false weather?
Especially false weather. Men forgive power more easily when it looks eternal. My enemies counted my birthdays like creditors, so I gave them no birthdays. Semper iadem, always the same. In a land where I had watched everything change hands, crowns, faiths, mothers, I offered England a fixed point.
You genuinely loved the theatre, though, not just as a tool.
Of course I loved it. The stage was the only place in England where everyone admitted they were lying. I found something like peace in it. I would watch a boy play a queen and think, he rehearses for 2 hours. I have been in costume for 40 years.
And it was useful.
A playhouse teaches 1,000 souls in an afternoon what England is and why it must be loved. Cheaper than an army. The Puritans called the theatre a house of lies. I called it a house of necessary truths. So is a throne. One learns to value well-built houses.
That's the most honest defense of propaganda I've ever heard.
I do not know your word. A pretty one, though, for an old habit. Old habits rarely earn an honest defense. Mine has.
And it cuts both ways. The history plays were your family's myth with better verse. The Tudors had a habit of casting their enemies as monsters. Richard just happened to get the best-known part. I've had him on the show, actually. He's threatening a lawsuit against your favorite poet.
I do not doubt it. A dynasty that arrives by battle must be maintained by story. My grandfather won the field. The poets held it.
You're not even embarrassed.
Embarrassment is for those who believe the other side would have told the truth.
The Golden Age. Shakespeare, Marlowe, Drake circumnavigating the globe, Raleigh giving your name to a virgin land. Dreams of empire in the making. This is the brochure image of England. And so, the rude question, how much of that gold was stolen?
Gold does not inquire into whose birthright it is before changing hands.
Not a denial.
No, it is a monarchy.
You knighted Drake aboard his own ship. Very efficient. The scene of the crime becomes the ceremony.
Spain branded him a pirate. Spain branded me a bastard. Spain's law was no law of mine when it came to honours. My sister's treasury was a tomb. Drake filled it. Audit the morals of my age when you inherit its debts.
Then let us look at the accounts properly. The silver heaped in those holds. Spain ripped it out of Peru and Mexico first, mined by men not chosen for the task. You stole from a thief and minted medals on Providence.
You will not make me weep for Philip's purse.
I don't expect you to cry for Philip. The silver belonged to people before it belonged to Spain.
My captains stole it out of Spanish warehouses. From where Spain had stolen it before, I have never inquired. That is the truth of it. I have never inquired. Crown governments do not audit the mines that lie below their miracles.
Because you didn't want to know.
Because I could not afford it. There is a difference. And now I can no longer remember what it is.
Then the middle road. You told me earlier you leave souls alone. It became something else after Rome condemned you. Priests died like traitors for saying Mass. Campion was hanged, drawn, and quartered. Treason was the charge. His priesthood was the point.
After the Pope said murdering me would not be a crime, after a Pope declared to all Catholics in my realm that murdering me would be a service to God, the bull made every English Catholic a question, subject or soldier. I did not begin to inquire into souls until Rome made them weapons.
Those men on the scaffolds might not agree with "I left souls alone."
Then amend the record. I left souls alone until Rome armed them.
The external ambition. Raleigh, an American coast named after you. Virginia, and then Roanoke. 100 or so settlers vanished. The first English settlement in America is a missing persons case.
An accolade I accepted, and an ambition I licensed gladly. Gold, land, and a thorn in Spain's side. I have never pretended otherwise. Whether that makes me a builder of empires, or merely their first debtor, history may decide. I did not stay to read the verdict. We reached further than we could hold, and some paid the price of the reaching. I answer for what I began, Master Michael, not for what others made of it.
Ireland paid for a great deal of the myth as well. Years of war, scorched earth, famine used as a weapon by your commanders.
Ireland was the war no part I played could end. No speech reached it. No portrait pacified it. It emptied my treasury, devoured my soldiers, and shamed my methods. And I will let it stand in the account against me, because it does.
Yet, 1593, Greenwich, an Irish pirate queen walks into your court. Grace O'Malley wouldn't bend to you. You spoke together in Latin, and you gave her what she came for.
She smelled of salt and gunpowder, not of perfume or court life. I respected that.
Because she was like you?
No, because she managed to survive without permission. There were very few of us in history. Women ruling in a world that had written no part for us. I released her sons. She kept her word to me.
Let me add it up then. Religion stabilized through control. Ambitions financed through piracy. Propaganda and theatre. The sea and, ultimately, empire. Is that what you call glory?
I call it survival grown large enough for poets to flatter.
Then the Golden Age was not innocent.
No age worth remembering is innocent.
So add it up. Rip off the brochure. What was the Golden Age really made of?
Fear, polished until it shone. It was never gold because it was clean. It was gold because I learned to polish fear until a nation saw its own reflection in it and mistook it for destiny.
And the cost?
You have been circling the cost all evening. Ask.
1562. Smallpox almost kills you. You survive. Your face doesn't.
The kingdom required Gloriana. I supplied her. Every morning, layer upon layer, I painted the queen over the woman, and every year there was more queen and less woman to find underneath.
Historians call it the mask of youth, the white lead, the vermilion. They still argue what decades of it did to you.
Let them argue. I will tell you the only thing I know for certain. Everything that preserved me consumed me. The paint, the virginity, the delay, the myth. I never found the line where preservation ended and consumption began. Perhaps there is no line. Perhaps that is the whole of monarchy, said in one sentence.
1588. Weeks after the greatest triumph of your life, Robert Dudley dies.
The Armada year was crowded with losses. I shut my door and did not open it. For days. In the end, Cecil ordered it broken down. A queen, it seems, is not permitted even the privacy of grief.
You kept his letter.
The last one he wrote me, 6 days before he died. It has never left the casket beside my bed, with 3 words on it in my hand, his last letter. 30 years of choosing England over him, and at the end, all my choosing fit inside one small box.
Then Walsingham, then Cecil, one by one.
One by one, the pageant outlived its makers. And I discovered the stage was lonelier than the Tower had ever been. In the Tower, at least, I had a future for company.
Near the end, the coronation ring. Your wedding ring to England. 45 years on your finger. It had grown into the skin. They had to file it off you.
I called England my husband. Apparently my body took the marriage literally.
It must have hurt.
By then, everything did.
March 1603, Richmond Palace. Your servant said you refused to lie down. You stood for days, leaning on cushions, staring at the floor. Why?
I had spent 70 years refusing to be lowered, by fathers, by sisters, by suitors, by Spain. Lying down felt like agreement.
Agreement with what?
With ending.
What was left to be afraid of? You'd outlived everyone.
That it had a face. Erasure. It had been following me since I was 2 years and 8 months old, and I knew that the moment I lay down, it would finally introduce itself.
You told me you never leave a blank space on a page, but you left the largest one there is. No heir, no name, for 45 years.
A named heir is a sunrise announced at midnight. Every discontented man in the kingdom begins living by the new clock. I had been the sunrise once, in my sister's reign. I knew what gathers around one. I was the page, Master Michael. I could not risk what other men's ink would do with my blank.
And at the very end, the story goes, you gave a sign for James, son of Mary Stuart. So let me put the whole reign in one question. You survived your father, your sister, your lovers, your rivals, Spain, Rome, and Mary Stuart. And in the end, the son of the woman you executed inherited your throne. Does that feel like victory?
Victory is not keeping everything. It is deciding what history is allowed to remember.
And what did history forget?
It forgot nothing. It chose.
No, it worshipped the Queen and buried the child.
You presume. Then perhaps the child was safer buried.
They've made you an icon now, a feminist saint to some, a tyrant to others, a face on coins, a costume, a film.
I have been reduced to a virgin, an icon, and a monster. The 3 costumes history keeps in my size. All of them fit. None of them are mine.
Then how does it feel, being remembered as one of the greatest rulers who ever lived?
Like winning a wager, whose stake I only understood after I had already paid it.
Last question. You turn fear into policy, policy into myth, myth into a golden age. But what did fear turn you into?
Necessary.
That's the saddest word a ruler can hide behind.
And the truest.
History rarely remembers the wound. It remembers what the wound built. This was Minds of History, conversations with the minds that shaped history. Remember, history tells us what happened. The mind tells us why.